Students ask me several things about the uh, drugs, and they always complain that there are so many difficult names of drugs in pharmacology. I already circulated the student formulary, and then I was counting last night. Out of 24 lectures, 8, 9, 10, 12 lectures are without drugs, names of drugs. 8 initial lectures of general pharmacology, one lecture on autonomic nervous system, which I delivered, and then principles of antibiotic therapy, 10, and then this is the 11th lecture, no drug, just the principles. So there are only 13 lectures which have some names of drugs. So no need to worry about. So principles of chemotherapy, today we are going to discuss some definitions of common terms used in cancer chemotherapy and discuss the rationale for the use of chemotherapy, explain the kinetics of tumor growth and log cell kill model, and the role of combination therapy in the treatment of various cancers, and finally, a slide on the classification of drugs, which will help to discuss some of the representative or prototype drugs in the next lecture, which is 2 days later. Okay, cancer chemotherapy, the term is described as the use of chemicals or drugs to treat cancer. Cancer chemotherapy, generally, based on your prior knowledge, when you encounter a patient or when you have seen a patient with cancer, what types of treatment are required to treat that patient? Just drugs, chemotherapy, what else? Removal, removal of surgery, okay, surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation are mix of various modalities. Now, who decides? It depends upon the cancer, type of cancer. Therefore, this type of cancer, radiotherapy should be used. For this type of cancer, chemotherapy should be used. Who decides? Based on what? You judge, you decide based on what parameters? Basically, pathology people, they have started neoplasia now.
Staging of cancer.
Yes, please.
Staging of cancer.
Okay, very good. So it is basically the grading and staging of cancer that determines what should be the modality of treatment or the mix of treatment. And we'll discuss one by one few common terms. So surgery, complete removal of the, when it is metastasized, it is in the whole body. You can't make surgery. Can you? You can't remove the cancer from the whole body. If it is highly localized, you go for the surgery. Radiotherapy, radiation therapy, or drug therapy, or a combination of all these. Anti-cancer drugs kill cancer cells or modify their growth. However, selectivity of majority of the drugs is limited and they are one of the most toxic drugs used in therapy. Do you remember I introduced a term to you in one of the lectures about the selective toxicity? Can anybody from the boys explain that term? What is selective toxicity? Yes, please.
Basically, are targeting cells that are not present in the human.
Okay. So selective toxicity is the drug should be toxic to the unwanted cell,
Not to the normal
not
cells.
toxic to the normal cell. In the case of bacteria, we can achieve highest levels of selective toxicity because the prokaryotic cells are quite different from the eukaryotic cells, isn't it? Protein synthesizing machinery, cell structure, wall, cell membrane, everything is different in prokaryotes and bacteria. So for bacteria, in case of bacterial infection, you can target the physiological target, biochemical targets, and structural targets in such a way which are absent in the human cells. So you can achieve highest levels of selective toxicity in case of bacterial infection. which is not true in case of eukaryotes. For example, Hakim might have covered yesterday in case of antifungal drugs. No, his lecture on Thursday, I think, Wednesday. So it was postponed. So because fungi are eukaryotic cells, very similar to the human cells. And the greatest difficulty comes when you are going to kill your own cells, because they are our family. Cancer cells are our family. They are very similar to our cells. If you are going to kill them, you have to kill some of your own cells, normal cells, because it is entirely difficult to differentiate completely between a malignant cell and a normal cell, because they look alike. They are very similar, except for the few biochemical differences which happen, or genetic differences in the malignant cells which make it different. Otherwise, structurally and biochemically in many ways, they are exactly like normal cells. So it is very, very difficult to differentiate for a chemotherapeutic drug between malignant and normal cells. So they are one of the most toxic drugs in the therapy, unlike antibiotic drugs. Ideally, these drugs should interfere only with cellular processes unique to the malignant cells. However, majority of the anti-cancer drugs don't specifically recognize neoplastic cells, rather affect all proliferating cells, both normal and abnormal. This is the trade-off. This is a trade-off, you have to live with it. If you want to get rid of cancer, you have to accept that highest level of toxicity is anti-cancer drugs. Okay. Goals of cancer chemotherapy: curative, eradication, to get rid of the cancer completely and decisively. Induction given with the intent of inducing complete remission. That is your intent, yes. And after this induction, consolidation, repetition of the induction regimen in a patient who has achieved a complete remission. And finally, maintenance, long-term low-dose chemotherapy in a patient who has achieved a complete remission to prevent recurrence. The objective is to prevent recurrence, because you can't see each cell of the body whether it has undergone malignant transformation or not. 100% of the malignant cells have been killed or not. You don't never know. So you have to go for the maintenance chemotherapy for extended periods of time. And then in some situations, the situation is very pathetic, hopeless. Right from the beginning, at the time of diagnosis, depending upon the staging, grading, type of cancer, or the available treatment, you decide you can't do anything. You can't do anything. You can't cure the patient. You can't completely suppress the tumor. The only option you can give to the patient is, at the most, with the treatment, we can enhance the quality of life, or to some extent prolong the life. That's it. So that is known as palliative treatment, or improve quality of life and prolong life. The cancer will remain. Cancer will remain, but the quality of life to some extent can be improved. Modes of chemotherapy. Chemotherapy is used in, we are now dealing with various definitions and principles. No drug, no drug. Chemotherapy is used in following main settings: primary induction chemotherapy, and I am going to tell you the definition. Keep in mind, this is very, very important concept. Primary induction chemotherapy, adjuvant chemotherapy, neoadjuvant chemotherapy, and concurrent chemotherapy. Are you familiar with these terms? Have you ever, in the antibiotic, there were three terms which were used: definitive treatment, prophylactic treatment, and empirical treatment. Do you remember? Definitive, when you definitely know the causative microorganism. Prophylactic, when the patient is not suffering from any infection, but there is high likelihood of developing an infection. So you are preventing by using some antibiotics, prophylactic use. And then there's the empirical. The patient is having infection, you don't know, but the situation warrants that you have to institute antibiotic therapy right away, without waiting for the lab results. So that is empirical treatment. But here in case of cancer, there are different terms used: primary induction, adjuvant, neoadjuvant, and concurrent chemotherapy. And each has different definitions. Primary induction chemotherapy, it is used as the sole anti-cancer treatment in a highly sensitive tumor type, like in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, or chemotherapy administered as the primary treatment in patients who present with advanced cancer for which no alternative treatment exists, for example, advanced metastatic disease. Primary. No other form of modality, no other form of treatment is available. Either the treatment, the tumor is highly sensitive to a particular drug. You will see later on especially in the hem-onc block in third year, lymphomas and leukemias, they can be cured with certain drugs, with primary induction treatment. Or in situations when the tumor has metastasized to such an extent that you will go for the palliative treatment, for primary induction treatment. Only treatment available to you is primary induction. So the goal of therapy is to relieve tumor-related symptoms, improve overall quality of life, and prolong time to tumor progression. And then we have adjuvant. This is important. Adjuvant. What is the meaning of adjuvant, basically? English, this is a common English word. Adjuvant. It is basically additional, not the primary. You can say the secondary. In addition to primary, this is a supplementary treatment. So adjuvant chemotherapy is given after surgery. As I mentioned earlier, even after the surgery, well-localized tumor, breast tumor, for example, or any of the well-localized tumor, you remove the tumor, but the current technology and diagnostic tools do not give you such a level of confidence that the surgery I performed, the tumor has been 100% removed. We don't know. It is likely there may be some regional metastasis. Regional metastasis or local extension of the tumor, you never know. In that case, in those situations, surgery is followed by chemotherapy. So that is primary treatment is surgery, but then followed by additional treatment chemotherapy, which is known as adjuvant chemotherapy. So the goal is to mop up microscopic residual disease or reduce the incidence of both local and systemic recurrence. Because the current understanding or diagnostic tools do not give you such 100% confidence that everything has been removed by surgery. You can go with adjuvant chemotherapy even after the surgery. Is this concept clear? Generally, this mode of chemotherapy may offer a cure. And then we have neoadjuvant. Once again, adjuvant, but it is slightly different from the adjuvant. Adjuvant is post-operative, post-surgery chemotherapy. Here, it is reversed. It is before the surgery. Chemotherapy before the surgery, neoadjuvant. Why? What is the goal? Can you figure out? And it, no, we are not dealing with infection here. We are dealing with cancer cells. Before the surgery, sometimes, okay, I will tell you. Treatment is given before surgery to shrink tumor and increase the chances of successful when it is diffuse. Once again, I give you the example of breast cancer. It is well localized, but it is diffused. And the surgery may be a difficult one. Then in that case, the primary aim of this neoadjuvant therapy is to shrink the size, to make it well clean so that the surgery can be successful and easy. Successful and easy. So the same patient can undergo neoadjuvant chemotherapy, surgery, and adjuvant chemotherapy. Do you understand my point here? So neoadjuvant is a chemotherapy instituted before the surgery, adjuvant after the surgery. So this mode of therapy is given to localized cancer for which option of surgery is present. And concurrent is if treatment is given simultaneous to radiation to increase sensitivity of cancer cells to radiation. At the same time, radiation plus chemotherapy together. This is concurrent chemotherapy. So you can see here the difference between adjuvant and neoadjuvant breast cancer. Initially, we remove the tumor, but apparently from the current diagnostic tools, we don't see any evidence of tumor, but still you go for the adjuvant treatment to mop up any residual disease adjuvant. In the neoadjuvant, this is although localized but diffuse, and as a result of neoadjuvant treatment, you decrease the size of the tumor and then perform surgery, or you can go for further adjuvant treatment after the surgery. Clear? Good. Cancer treatment with respect to quality of life. Okay, on the x-axis we have time, and then on the y-axis we have quality of life. Of course, it is arbitrary quality of life. 100% is normal. And natural course of the disease at the time of diagnosis, without any intervention, over time, the quality of life improves, and zero corresponds with death, isn't it? Death here. So once you diagnose the patient and instituted cancer chemotherapy, there's a slight dip initially in the quality of life, and then it goes better. If it is curative treatment, the patient quality of life improves like normal. So can anybody explain why there's a dip initially? Yes. Side effects of the drug. Because as I mentioned, these are the most toxic drugs. Initially, instead of improving the quality of life, basically you decrease the quality of life because of the side effects of the drug. So there's dip and then it improves if it is curative treatment. Sometimes it is not curative, it is palliative. As I mentioned, palliation means here in the curative, the patient has become all right, back to normal. But in palliation, you increase the quality of life to some extent, and also compared to this is the natural course of it. This is the baseline. So compared with this curve, with effective palliation, you improved the quality of life, okay, here. But then not only also you improved, but you prolonged the life from here, the patient died over here, and with palliation, the patient died over here. You increase some time, but overall, there is no curative, the patient is going to die anyway. Do you remember palliative treatment? Okay, palliative treatment is you improve the quality, you prolong the life, but then overall, the patient is going to die. It is not curative treatment. Okay? And then over treatment. You neither prolong the life, or maybe you have prolonged the life, but the quality of life is so miserable, it is better not to institute the treatment because of the side effects of the drug or treatment. So it can be like that. So various options are available. Model of logarithmic cell growth. The cell grows exponentially. I mean, malignant cells grow exponentially. Likewise, the anti-cancer, with the start of anti-cancer drugs, they are killed logarithmically in exponential order. Do you remember the concept of who must have got I think? First order kinetics. Did she cover this concept?
Yeah.
First order kinetics and zero order kinetics. Okay. Although this is different, but the definitions apply. Can you explain first order kinetics?
So that as you increase the dose, the response will increase.
Response? No, not response. It is not response. Elimination. Elimination. So first order kinetics is the fraction of a constant fraction of the drug will be eliminated from the body per unit of time. Constant fraction is a percentage. For example, 20% of the drug is eliminated per hour. It will continue to remain 20%. If you increase the dose, of course, the 20% of increased dose will be increased. If you decrease the dose, 20% of the decreased dose will be decreased. So it's a constant fraction of the drug. Compare this with first zero order kinetics. That is not constant fraction. It is the constant amount. Constant amount of the drug which is eliminated per unit of time. So if 20 milligram of a drug is eliminated per hour, it will continue to remain 20 milligram irrespective of the dose. So it is a zero order kinetic. So here, when we say logarithmic cell kill, they also follow first order kinetics of killing. Say for example, 99% cells of the kill with pulse, one dose of anti-cancer drugs, 1% will remain. After the second dose, 99% of the remaining 1% will be killed, but still 1% will remain, isn't it? So in that case, you can see from here, I'll show you the next graph. So here, the cancer has been diagnosed and you started the anti-cancer drugs here at this stage. When it has been diagnosed, first pulse cycle, and the cancer starts to rebuild, second pulse starts to rebuild, third pulse starts to rebuild, fourth pulse starts to rebuild, 5 pulses. So this is the rule of 5, which we mentioned in general pharmacology, the same applies. It requires about at least 5 cycles of anti-cancer drugs to consider that cancer cells, it is provided the cancer cells are very, very sensitive to the anti-cancer drug. Very, very sensitive to the anti-cancer drug. At least 5 cycles of anti-cancer drugs are required to be of some confidence that the cancer has been eliminated. However, it is likely that during the course of the therapy, the cancer cells may develop resistance just like bacteria. In this case, this will be like that. Once again, it will grow. The drugs will be ineffective. Is that clear? So 99% cells were killed and the remaining 1% remained. So second cycle, more 99%. What is the 99? So here, when we started the treatment, it seems somewhere around 10 power 10, 10 power 10, okay. So what is the 99% of 10 power 10? What is the 99% of 10 power 10?
9
Huh?
9.
10 power 9, 99% will be 2 lakh degrees. So it will be 10 power, sorry, yes, 2 power degrees. So 10 power 8. So 99% of 10 power 8 will be 10 power 6. 99% of 10 power 6 will be 10 power 4, like that. So you are going on decreasing with each cycle of anti-cancer chemotherapy till after 5 or 6 cycles, theoretically, majority of the cells have been killed. Okay. Dose response effect, once again, the same concept of general pharmacology therapeutic index, safety of the drug. Therapeutic index is measured from the lethal dose 50 or toxic dose 50 and effective dose 50, ED50 and GD50. So you can see generally, so this is the tumor response, tumor cells, this is the normal cell response. The difference between the two normal cell response and tumor cell response, if the difference is too huge, the drug is considered to be safer. If the difference between effect on the normal cells and effect on the malignant cells is very high, the drug is relatively safer and it has larger therapeutic index. But if the difference between the effect on the normal cells and the malignant cells is too narrow, the drug is very, very unsafe and very toxic. Okay. Combination, now similar to we covered in antibiotic therapy, you give sometimes multiple drugs at the same time. Instead of one, you give multiple. Can you recall that concept? Why do we give more than one drugs, 2, 3, sometimes 4 drugs for bacterial infection? Can you explain? Yes, please. why do you give combination drugs in bacterial infection? This was covered.
Sometimes they
Yes. Very good. One, to reduce the chances of development of resistance during the course of treatment. Okay. Can you give me some example of that? That is not because of the resistance. In case of anti-TB drugs, for example, you give 4 drugs. Okay, that will be covered later on. One thing is, one objective is to reduce the chances of developing resistance. Yes. Mm, sometimes, sometimes,
The synergistic effect.
yes, please, yes,
The
repeat it.
synergistic effect.
Yes, synergistic effect, very good. Sometimes two drugs given together, they produce a synergistic effect. The one you mentioned, aminoglycoside and penicillin, is one example of synergistic effect to get more effect. 1 + 1 is equal to more than 2, which I mentioned in my first lecture. Okay, or in some cases, empirical treatment, for example, you never know. The situation is urgent. Patient is in septic shock. Empirically, you don't know which organism has caused the infection. You can give a variety of drugs, 2, 3 drugs together, covering gram positive, covering gram negative, covering anaerobes, all together. So this is the purpose of combination in emergency situation. Okay. So here the objective, one of the objectives is shared with antibiotics. Sometimes you give multiple drugs together. Why? Most cancer are treated with a combination of chemotherapeutic agents. The principles of combination therapy are, when you choose the drug, each agent should have an independent activity against a specific tumor. Independent activity. Each drug should have a different mechanism of action. It is advantageous to target different states along a biochemical pathway. If you choose 2 drugs belonging to same class, belonging to same mechanism of action, what will be the outcome? What is so irrational about giving 2 drugs from the same class? What is so rational? Yes? It will not aid structural synergy. And number 2, the important, you will see in the next slide, the basic purpose is to inhibit, to decrease the likelihood of developing resistance. If the cancer cells develop resistance to one drug, there will be cross resistance because the mechanism of action is the same. So it is irrational to use 2 drugs with the same mechanism of action. They should be different. Okay? And then there should not be cross resistance among the agents used, obviously. Each of the agents should have a different dose limiting toxicity. Now, this is important concept. Do we have time? 20 minutes, okay. When we say dose limiting toxicity, can you figure out the definition of this term? Dose limiting toxicity. You can make, just think, you can make a definition. Not to prevent. The toxicity of the drug, which prevents you not to increase the dose of the drug. Not to increase the dose of the drug. Dose limiting toxicity. Just like you say in the case of biochemistry, what do you say? Rate limiting state. Don't you say rate limiting state in a biochemical pathway? Here is a dose limiting toxicity is you, for every drug, there are some toxicity, some side effects. One side effect, or maybe more than one, are so important for this drug. You select that toxicity, that side effect, that toxicity is so important that will prevent you not to go beyond certain dose. Not to go beyond a certain dose. So that side effect of that drug is known as dose. Have a different dose limiting toxicity. For example, drug A is very cardiotoxic. If drug B is also cardiotoxic, then it is rational to combine those drugs having the same dose limiting toxicity. One drug should be having neurotoxic, other should be having cardiotoxic, other should be having causing severe myelosuppression, other should be having causing severe vomiting. So dose limiting toxicity, those side effects should differ between the drugs. If it is shared by more than one drug, say, then it is irrational. Because that toxicity, if you are increasing the effectiveness of the drug, at the same time, you are also causing increased chances of that side effect also. So that toxicity should not be shared by the drugs. Is that clear? Dose limiting toxicity. Administering two agents with the same toxicity profile at the maximum tolerated dose of each can produce unacceptable toxicity. So that particular toxicity, dose limiting toxicity, should not be shared by more than one drug in the combination. Okay. Advantages of drug combinations provide maximal cell kill in the range of tolerated toxicity, effective against a broader range of cell lines in the heterogeneous tumor population, and obviously the last one may slow or prevent the development of resistance, as we already discussed. Now, finally, cell cycle, you are aware already. Biochemistry people, they have taught you, or maybe in the high school, cell cycle. Just a brief, because without understanding cell cycle, the mechanism of action of drugs would be difficult to comprehend. Cell cycle. Understanding the cell cycle is necessary in cancer chemotherapy. It's a series of events that takes place in a proliferating cell, both normal and malignant, leading to its division and duplication. Now see, so this is a cycle. Where should we start? From here, G1, G1, G0. Let's start from G1. Okay, let's start from G1. Okay, so G1 is the infant cell. Okay, it becomes toddler during that cell. During that cell, the cell is metabolically active, duplicates organelles and cytosolic components, starts replicating centrosomes. It starts from the G1. So of course, the duration of these cells is completely different depending upon the type of tissue. Okay? In the rapidly proliferating cells like bone marrow and GID, vesicle cells, it will be so rapid. Or in cells where the rapid turnover is not required, it will be extremely slow. Or the same cell may go under a GNR phase. We'll discuss later. So this is just arbitrary. Okay, for the different type of activity demanded by the body, the duration of each phase could be entirely different. So let's start with G1. So here, the infant cell, as I mentioned, and then it after all these duplication of organelles, the cell enters into S phase. S pertains to synthesis. All the DNA is replicated in this phase during S phase. Once it is done, this phase is achieved. S phase, then it enters into the G2 phase. After G1, G2, cell growth continues. It becomes bigger in size. Enzymes and all other proteins are synthesized, and replication of centrosome is completed, which started in G1 phase. Which started in G1, it is completed in G2. When all the necessary ingredients are ready, for example, organelles, membranes, and DNA, everything has been duplicated as a result of G1, S, and G2, the cell enters into now M phase. M phase pertains to mitosis. So here, so forget about these various subphases of M phase, just we'll consider it mitosis. So everything, all the whole process of mitosis, the cell undergoes, you see centromeres and mitotic spindle cell divides into two cells after, as a result of M phase, two cells are produced. Now the requirement on that particular tissue will determine those divided, just divided cells, where should they go? Whether they should go into G naught phase or G zero phase, just resting phase, or they enter into, once again, another dividing phase, G1 phase. So depending upon the demand on the body. So in that case, since metabolically, physiologically, and biochemically, various states are happening in these phases, and especially in the cells which are rapidly proliferating cells, rapidly dividing cells, as in the case of malignancy, cancer. Cancer cells are rapidly dividing. So you will target, you will see later on in the specific drugs, you will target various structures here which will hit the rapidly dividing cells of the cancer. Nevertheless, once you are targeting those rapidly dividing cells of the cancer, you will hit the rapidly dividing normal cells also. And what are those rapidly dividing normal cells in the body? Epithelium of what? GI, skin, hair cells, bone marrow cells. So these are hardest hit tissues of the body. That is why the side effects of, most common side effects of anti-cancer drugs, especially the non-specific anti-cancer drugs, are hair loss, alopecia, hair cells, skin, GI ulcers, severe nausea and vomiting, and bone marrow suppression, leading to all types of deficiency, anemia, thrombocytopenia, and leukopenia. Okay, all cell signs are depleted. Bone marrow is rapidly dividing. Bone marrow cells are rapidly dividing. Okay, so just keep in mind cell cycle. Based on this, drugs, anti-cancer drugs, can be divided into non-phase dependent cell cycle non-specific. That means the drugs are non-selective, non-specific. They can hit any phase of the cell cycle, any phase of the cell cycle, be it starting from G1 to M phase. Or there are phase-dependent cell cycle specific. Based on the mechanism of action, they can hit a particular phase of the cell cycle. For example, S phase, M phase. You will see, depending upon the mechanism of action, if it interferes with mitotic spindle, it will hit which phase? It will be M phase. If it hits the DNA synthesis, it will hit the S phase. So likewise, so there are certain drugs which are non-specific, which can hit any phase. Those are cell cycle non-specific, mainly are alkylating agents. And interestingly, those drugs which are non-specific are the most effective. Why? Why? Also, one phase of the cell cycle is very, very immune to the specific drug. And which phase is? G naught. Cell is sleeping, not active. G naught phase, in that case, some population of the cancer cells, they do not, all population, 100% of the cells are actively repeating. They are very clever, very smart. Some cells of the malignant cell, cancer cells, they are in all the phases, and some are in G naught phase. Some are in the G naught phase, they are spared. They can be only hit by the alkylating agents or the cell cycle non-specific drugs. Otherwise, you kill all the rapidly dividing cells, G naught are spared. They are hardest to be killed. Hardest to be killed. In that case, they will be spared. And as you removed all the other cells, those G naught will be now converted into G1. Okay. So non-phase dependent cell cycle specific, I mentioned, toxic to both cycling cells and those in G naught phase. Because of this G naught phase, they are very, very effective. They kill cells by direct DNA damage and kill exponentially with increasing dose, examples, alkylating agents. Phase dependent cell cycle specific, they kill cells only in specific phases of parts is not a good word. Specific phases of cell cycle. Consider this as phase. For example, mitotic phase. We'll discuss these classes, prototype drugs later on in coming lecture. M phase, Wnt alkaloids, they, for example, they inhibit the polymerization of beta tubulin protein. The mitotic spindle is made of what? Microtubules. And microtubules are the polymers of beta tubulins. So beta tubulins are inhibited to be polymerized by these Wnt alkaloids so that mitotic spindles are not formed and cell fails to divide. That particular very specific phase is affected, which is M phase. And textures is the opposite. Once the cell has been divided, it has to be mitotic spindles need to be depolymerized to completely divide the cell. So it fails to depolymerize. Okay, we'll discuss later on. Just S phase, obviously, antimetabolites, methotrexate antibiotics, they inhibit the DNA synthesis, thereby leading to inhibition of S phase. G1 phase, corticosteroids, we'll discuss later on. These are phase-specific drugs. And finally, few minutes on management of adverse effects. Adverse effects result from lysis of normal cells, depends on the type of drug dose, route, and individual response. Rapidly dividing cells are most affected. Blood cells, hair follicle, digestive tract, and reproductive tract. Obviously, we discussed epithelia, reproductive tract, digestive tract, hair cells. So these are the side effects. Thrombocytopenia, the bone marrow depression, alopecia, vomiting. So how do you manage? Just rough guideline. If there are local allergic reactions like thrombophlebitis as a result of injection, because these are very toxic chemicals, they have local irritant action also. As soon as the drug is being administered through intravenous line, it may cause local reactions. That can be treated with antihistamine or hydrocortisone. Antihistamine lecture, although it has been postponed, it was today by Manal. She is not available. She will deliver a detailed lecture on antihistamine drugs next week, last lecture. Okay. So antihistamine are the drugs which are used to prevent or treat. Histamine has been covered by pathology people and immunology people. So what is that? What is the role of histamine? Allergic reaction. So allergic reactions can be prevented or treated by antihistamine drugs, histamine receptor antagonists. And then systemic side effects, hematopoietic, myelosuppression. You can prevent that with colony stimulating factor, granulocyte macrophage colony stimulating factor, and then gastrointestinal tract, nausea, vomiting, anorexia. You can treat with 5-hydroxytryptophan receptor antagonist. And I will cover this in the GIT block later on. Just don't become confused. Just I'm going to tell you, forget about this. Vomiting is a highly organized pathway. It can, many things can cause vomiting, drugs, infections, even morning sickness, even motion sickness, they all cause vomiting. So vomiting can be due to a variety of reasons. One reason here in the context of today's lecture is chemotherapy-induced vomiting. Chemotherapy-induced vomiting. There is one specialized center in the medulla, which is known as chemoreceptor trigger zone. That is, as the name indicates, chemoreceptor trigger zone. It is a receptor that senses the chemistry of the blood. There are some alien objects in the blood, like anti-cancer drugs. They are sensed, and then the chemoreceptor trigger zone is stimulated. That in turn leads to stimulation of nearby vomiting center, which coordinates the act of vomiting, and vomiting ensues. So over there in the chemoreceptor trigger zone, we have the preponderance, highest distribution of serotonin receptors, 5-hydroxytryptamine receptors. If you And chemotherapy induced vomiting is not a small issue. It is a big issue, very big issue. Vomiting, don't consider this as a small side effect. Just go and see on the Google how big this side effect is. It is not less than myelosuppression. Chemotherapy induced vomiting is a very big side effect. A lot of research is being conducted on this, only this aspect of vomiting. So that chemotherapy induced vomiting can be blocked by giving anti-serotonin drugs, 5-hydroxytryptamine, etc. intravenous. Just give you in flavor. We will cover in detail in GI block. Okay, I think this is the last slide. Okay, good. Thank you. So Garvin is waiting outside.
Doctor, can I ask a question?
Oh, please go ahead.
You said that some drugs that the non-specific drugs,
Hmm.
they target the genal phase of the cell cycle. My question is why we need to like target the genal phase while cancer cells that are dividing most of the time, are in M phase. Why do we need to target
Okay.
genal phase that
Let me clarify. I didn't say that non-specific drugs only target cells in GNR phase. I said, and it is mentioned in the slide, I said that non-specific drugs like alkylating agents, they target both rapidly dividing cells as well as cells in the GNR phase. I said like that. I didn't say that they only target GNR phase. They target all phases, including GNR phase. Did I make
yeah,
myself clear? Okay.
yes. My
So
question
in
is
that case, why do you target GNR phase? Because as I mentioned, I think you missed that part, that some cell population in the whole cancer, some are, all of the cells are not in all the phases, rapidly dividing cells. Some are dormant, they are in the GNR phase. Once you are getting the cell kill as a result of cytotoxic drugs, those cells which are in the GNR phase can be, there is a high likelihood that those will be spared. And when you withdraw the treatment, those cells in the GNR phase will be converted into G1 phase, and a new wave of malignant cells will increase, will arise. So in that case, it is entirely necessary to kill all population of cells, including those in the GNR phase. That is why we institute those very toxic and highly non-selective drugs like alkylating agents, because they are very effective. Because those cells which are in the cancer, which are in the GNR phase, those need to be killed also. Did I make myself clear? Not yet?
yes, thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay.